The twin suns of Erythra-9 were dipping low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the city of Valor, a city that looked like it had been carved from crystal and steel. The streets shimmered under the alien light, and massive towers spiraled toward the sky, their surfaces alive with colors no human eye could fully describe. From the observation deck of the Horizon starport, Captain Mara Kellen watched quietly, feeling both awe and unease. She had trained her entire life for first contact scenarios, but nothing had prepared her for this level of perfection, or deception. Humans had been welcomed as the chosen species by the Eldrin Council, a coalition of alien races that spanned dozens of star systems. They had said humans were unique because of their adaptability, ingenuity, and unpredictability. Other species respected, feared, and sometimes envied them. Humanity's first ambassadors had arrived decades ago, and the Eldrin had given them technology that made even the best human engineers feel like children. Cities grew, diseases fell, and life seemed to flourish. Mara had been a child when humanity first stepped onto Erythra-9. Now she was one of the leaders tasked with preparing the human settlement for full integration with the Eldrin. She knew the humans had built trust carefully, slowly, offering knowledge and service, but also keeping a cautious distance. Humans had learned to be wary. History had taught them that trust could be dangerous. Despite the luxury and the beauty, Mara could not shake the feeling that something was wrong. The reports had been small at first. Farmers on the outskirts of the city had gone missing, leaving nothing behind except crops that were trampled as if by a massive machine. Some elders whispered about strange sightings at night, ships that moved silently above the fields, drones that seemed almost alive. The Eldrin Council had dismissed these concerns, labeling them as paranoia, but Mara had learned long ago that instinct often spoke louder than diplomacy. She turned away from the observation deck's viewport and made her way down the hallway. The corridors of the Horizon starport were vast and lined with materials that were entirely alien. The walls shimmered slightly, reacting to movement, and light floated without a source. She passed other humans and Eldrin citizens mingling in quiet harmony, exchanging gestures and words she could not fully understand. But all Mara could see were the whispers in the eyes of those around her, tension, doubt, and fear hidden behind polite smiles. The first attack came just as the suns dipped below the horizon. It began quietly at first. A low hum echoed across the city, almost inaudible against the usual noise of the starport. Then the sky erupted. Beams of fire streaked across the city, slamming into towers and streets with terrifying precision. Mara's alarm systems blared, red lights flooding the deck as the emergency sirens joined the chaos. "Captain Kellen," a young officer shouted, running toward her. "We're under attack, the city gates are sealed, civilians are trapped." Mara's heart raced. Her training kicked in. She grabbed her rifle, feeling the weight of it in her hands like an extension of herself. Around her, humans and even some Eldrin who had once smiled at them now turned hostile, their loyalty to the Council clear in the glint of their weapons. The first betrayal had come with perfect timing and terrifying speed. The streets of Valor became rivers of chaos. Humans ran through glass-strewn avenues, trying to reach shelters, only to find automated drones cutting off escape routes. Buildings designed for beauty and awe now became death traps. Explosions tore through plazas, and screams filled the air, mixing with the roar of fire and the hum of alien technology. Mara moved quickly, her mind calculating every step. She gathered a small group of humans, scientists, soldiers, and even civilians who had shown courage under pressure, and led them toward a maintenance corridor she knew would take them under the city. The tunnels beneath Valor were a maze of pipes, cables, and forgotten service areas, but they were humanity's only chance to survive. As they ran, Mara's mind raced with questions. Why? Why would the Eldrin choose humanity only to destroy them? Humans had not fought them. Humans had not rebelled. The answer was clear in the way the drones hunted them like animals. The Eldrin had never seen them as equals. They had only ever seen them as tools, or worse, as entertainment in some cruel experiment. By the time the group reached the tunnels, the chaos above was nearly complete. Fires consumed half the city, and the screams of the trapped echoed through the metal walls beneath. Mara paused to catch her breath, listening to the distant explosions. Her team looked at her, fear written on every face, but also trust. They had chosen her to lead them, and she could not fail. Listen, she said, her voice calm but firm. We survive, we stay together. The Eldrin might have planned this, but we are humans. We adapt, we fight. And we will not be hunted like prey. Her words seemed to ignite a spark in the group. Even the scientists, who had spent their lives in laboratories, nodded with determination. The humans had always survived against impossible odds, and Mara knew that instinct now would carry them through the first night. The tunnels led them beneath a research facility that had once been shared by humans and Eldrin. The walls were lined with glass tubes containing strange plants and creatures, illuminated by soft alien light. Mara realized that many of the experiments here had been designed to study human reactions, everything from fear to problem-solving under pressure. Now they might just prove useful. Mara motioned for the group to stop. She crouched near a control panel, fingers flying over buttons and screens, trying to override the city's security systems. Her heart pounded as the drones above approached, scanning for life. Sparks flew from the panel and alarms blared briefly, but she managed to open a small hatch leading to an old supply tunnel. They slipped through, one by one, emerging on the outskirts of the city. The night was filled with firelight and the silhouettes of Eldrin ships hovering over burning streets. For the first time, Myra allowed herself to look around fully. Human homes, schools, and marketplaces were gone in minutes. The city that had welcomed them, that had promised safety and opportunity, had become a slaughterhouse. Mara took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. She looked at her team, faces pale, eyes wide with terror. And yet she saw something else there too, the spark of humanity, stubborn and unyielding. This was the moment that would define them. They had been chosen, yes, but not for honor. They had been chosen for death. And humans, Mara knew, did not give up that easily. We move at dawn, she said, her voice carrying authority. We find other survivors. We gather what we can, and then we fight back. Not because they chose us, but because we refuse to be chosen for slaughter. That night they camped in the shadow of a burned-out warehouse, listening to the distant hum of Eldrin patrols. Mara kept watch, her rifle ready, mind racing through strategies, escape routes, and contingencies. The city had fallen, but humanity had not. As she gazed at the red glow of the fires on the horizon, Mara felt a cold certainty settle in her chest. The Eldrin Council had underestimated humans. They had underestimated determination, courage, and the will to survive. The first night of the slaughter had shown one truth clearly: humans could be hunted, but they would also fight back with everything they had. And Mara would lead them. Somewhere deep beneath the city, in the old tunnels and abandoned research labs, humans whispered to one another. They spoke of courage, ingenuity, and hope. They shared stories of Earth, of battles won against impossible odds. In the firelight, their shadows danced on the walls like ghosts, alive and defiant. The Eldrin had declared them prey, but Myra knew that in the darkness of the tunnels, among those flickering shadows, the humans were already plotting, already learning, and already surviving. The slaughter would come, but so would retaliation. And when it did, the galaxy would remember the night the chosen species refused to die quietly. The sky above Valor was no longer welcoming. It was a battlefield. The streets that once hummed with life were now silent, filled only with ash and smoke. Yet somewhere in the ruins, humanity's heart beat strong. The Council had underestimated the most dangerous quality a species could have: the will to survive. Myra tightened her grip on her rifle. She knew this was just the beginning. The story of humans on Earth 9 was about to be rewritten, not as honored guests, but as warriors. And by the time the Eldrin realized it, it would be too late. The night dragged on, long and tense. Fires burned the horizon, and distant explosions rattled the tunnels. Yet amidst the chaos, humans huddled together, sharing warmth, food, and whispered plans. Mara watched them, feeling a surge of pride. They were terrified, yes, but they were unbroken. The Eldrin had expected fear, confusion, and submission. Instead, they would find resolve, intelligence, and unity. Mara finally allowed herself a moment to rest. Her eyes scanned the tunnel entrance, the city beyond, and the red-lit sky. In that moment, she promised herself something. No matter the cost, humans would not fall quietly. They would survive, they would adapt, they would rise. And when the time came, they would show the Eldrin exactly why they had been called the chosen species, though not in the way the Council had intended. And as the first stars appeared in the alien sky, a quiet determination settled over the survivors. Humanity had been hunted. Humanity had been betrayed. And humanity, Mara knew, would strike back. The fires of Valor still burned on the horizon as the first signs of dawn appeared, but the humans in the tunnels were already moving. Captain Mara Kellen had spent the night organizing her small band of survivors, noting strengths, weaknesses, and who could handle weapons, strategy, or logistics. Every single person mattered. They could not afford mistakes. The Eldrin Council had believed that humans would panic, scatter, or surrender. They had assumed fear would paralyze them, that cleverness and courage could not overcome advanced alien technology. But Mara knew better. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and extinction-level disasters. They did not surrender. They adapted. Mara gathered her team around a makeshift map she had drawn on a piece of scavenged metal, using colored markers to represent different Eldrin patrol zones, drones, and supply caches. "We know their patrol patterns," she said, pointing to a section of the city grid. Drones sweep the main avenues every 30 seconds. Smaller patrols move through side streets. Their AI is precise, but it is predictable. That's our chance. We strike at night and avoid detection. A young engineer, Toby Arlen, spoke up. "We can use the old maintenance tunnels to bypass drones. There are vents and service shafts that lead to supply depots. We can hit them, get what we need, and disappear before they know what happened." Mara nodded. "Exactly, but we do not fight for revenge yet. Our priority is survival and supplies. Every human we save is another soldier in the fight ahead." The team set out carefully, moving through tunnels that smelled of rust and oil. The city above was eerily silent, punctuated only by distant booms and the occasional whir of an Eldrin drone. Mara's senses were sharp. She had led countless missions in hostile territory, but never against a species that had once claimed to be your friend. The betrayal burned like fire in her mind. As they emerged near a supply depot, Mara gave the signal to stop. The building was guarded by a pair of Eldrin patrols, their weapons glowing faintly in the dim light. Humans had no advanced technology like the Eldrin's plasma rifles, but Mara had a plan. She had studied their AI, watched how the drones reacted to movement, sound, and light. Humans had to rely on creativity and courage. She whispered instructions to her team. They would create a diversion. A small explosion on one side would draw the patrol's attention, while a few stealth-trained humans would sneak in through a side entrance. The plan was risky, but every victory had risks. The countdown began. Mara's pulse quickened. With a single-hand signal, the diversion team activated the charges. A muffled explosion rocked the side of the depot, sending sparks into the air. As expected, the Eldrin patrols turned, weapons raised, scanning for the source. That was the moment. Mara and two others slipped inside, moving silently. The inside of the depot was filled with crates of supplies, some labeled in Eldrin script, others in universal symbols. Food, medical kits, weapons, and energy packs, everything a small human force could need to survive and fight. Toby set to work unlocking a storage crate that contained rifles scavenged from previous Eldrin human experiments. Mara watched him, her mind racing. They might not match Eldrin technology, but humans had always excelled at making the most of what they had. They would improvise, adapt, and turn even the smallest advantage into survival. Suddenly, the hum of a drone cut through the silence. Mara froze, listening. The patrol diversion had been effective, but a single drone had detected movement near the entrance. "They're coming," whispered Toby, eyes wide. Mara grabbed 2 energy packs and a small crate of weapons. "Keep moving. We leave nothing behind that can track us." The group slipped through a ventilation shaft and emerged in a side alley. Outside, the city was a nightmare of fire and ash. Humans ran across the streets, some screaming, some helping the injured. Mara scanned the area. This was no longer a city. It was a battlefield, and every street held danger. Suddenly, a group of humans appeared from the shadows, armed with scavenged weapons and makeshift armor. Mara recognized some of them, neighbors, scientists, even children who had survived the first night. They had formed resistance cells just as Mara had predicted. "We thought you were dead," one of them shouted. "We're alive," Mara replied, "and we're organizing. If we want to survive, we work together." It was in that moment Mara realized the true strength of humans. The Eldrin had underestimated not just human courage, but human instinct. Fear did not paralyze them. It made them cleverer, faster, sharper. Every survivor was a strategist, every escape a lesson, every small victory a step toward survival. Over the next few days, Mara and her team began to strike at Eldrin supply lines. Small teams would move silently through the city, disabling drones, stealing weapons, and rescuing trapped humans. Each mission was calculated, precise, and dangerous. Mara refused to let anyone act recklessly, yet she also understood that humans thrived on ingenuity and improvisation. One night, Mara led a mission to reclaim a communication hub that had been taken over by Eldrin forces. The building was a tall spire glowing faintly against the night sky. Inside, humans had been imprisoned, their hands bound, their spirits nearly broken. Mara felt anger burn inside her, but she kept it in check. This was not vengeance, this was survival. With careful coordination, her team disabled the building's security systems and fought their way inside. The humans inside cheered, their hope reignited. Mara looked at them and knew that survival depended not just on strength, but on inspiring others. Every rescued human became part of a larger network, a growing resistance that the Eldrin had not anticipated. As the weeks passed, Mara's group grew bolder. They studied the Eldrin tactics, learned their weaknesses, and adapted human ingenuity to overcome alien technology. Humans rigged traps, created improvised EMP devices, and used the city's architecture to their advantage. Each victory, no matter how small, strengthened morale and proved that humans were not prey. They were predators in their own right. Yet Mara also knew that the Eldrin were learning too. Each attack, each disruption made them more cautious, more aggressive. The humans could not survive forever in the shadows. They needed allies, strategies, and a way to turn the tide. Mara began reaching out to other human enclaves across the city, establishing lines of communication and sharing knowledge. It was during one of these missions that Mara encountered Dr. Lyra Soth, an expert in alien biology and technology. Lyra had been studying the Eldrin for years, learning their systems and weaknesses. With her help, Mara realized that humans could not only survive, they could fight back with intelligence, strategy, and adaptability. Together, Mara and Lyra developed plans to disable the Eldrin drones, AI, hack their systems, and create diversions that would allow humans to reclaim more territory. Each mission became more ambitious, each victory more impactful. Humans were no longer hiding. They were asserting themselves, showing that their so-called chosen status came not from favor, but from resilience, courage, and brilliance. The first major clash came in the old Central Plaza. Hundreds of humans, armed with scavenged weapons and clever traps, confronted Eldrin patrols attempting to enforce control. Mara coordinated from the shadows, using signals and improvised devices to guide her forces. Drones fell to EMP blasts, patrols were ambushed, and humans reclaimed critical territory. It was a turning point. Mara watched from a rooftop as the humans celebrated, cheering and embracing one another. For the first time since the slaughter began, hope burned bright. Humans had faced annihilation and had refused to bow. The Eldrin had underestimated them, and that mistake would be costly. But Mara also knew the battle was far from over. The Eldrin would retaliate, and their technology, intelligence, and ruthlessness posed a real threat. Humans could survive in small numbers, but to reclaim the city, to survive beyond this planet, they needed more than courage. They needed unity, strategy, and the relentless drive that had always defined their species. That night, as the fires in the city dimmed and the first stars appeared above the ruins, Mara gathered her team. She looked at their faces, tired but determined, and knew that humanity's story was just beginning. "We have shown them we are not prey," Mara said, her voice steady, carrying over the whispers of the survivors. "But this is only the beginning. They may have technology and strength, but we have something stronger, our will, our mind, and our courage. They hunted us. Now it's time we hunt back. And when we strike, we will strike as humans always have, clever, unpredictable, and unstoppable." Her words were met with quiet nods, murmurs of agreement, and a fire in the eyes of every human present. The Eldrin had thought this planet was theirs to control. They had thought humans would crumble under fear. They had been wrong. Across the city, humans began to coordinate like never before. Small victories grew into organized resistance, and the underground network Mara had built spread wider every day. Humans shared knowledge, tactics, and hope. Every rescued survivor was a soldier, every improvised weapon a tool of defiance. Mara knew that victory would not be easy. The Eldrin were relentless, precise, and merciless. But humans were more than clever, they were adaptable. They could learn, improvise, and turn even the smallest advantage into survival. As dawn broke over the ruined city, Myra looked to the horizon, where smoke still rose from the remains of Vaylor's once proud towers. She tightened her grip on her rifle and allowed herself a small, grim smile. Humans were not safe, but they were alive, organized, and ready. The Eldrin had declared them prey. Mara knew the truth now. Humans were hunters, and the hunt had just begun. The city of Vaylor had changed. Once a place of crystalline towers and gleaming streets, it now lay scarred by fire and ash. Smoke curled from ruined buildings, and the streets were littered with debris. Yet in the darkness of the city, humans had begun to rise. They moved in small groups, coordinated, deliberate. No longer prey, they were fighters. Captain Mara Kellen surveyed the city from the roof of an old observation tower. Her team had grown in numbers over the past weeks, as survivors joined forces, drawn by the rumors of resistance. Makeshift signals and coded messages allowed humans to communicate across districts. Mara had never felt so alive. The thrill of strategy, the hope of victory coursed through her veins even as exhaustion weighed heavily on her body. "This is our chance," Mara said, her voice low but commanding. "The Eldrin believe they have us cornered. They think fear has paralyzed us. They are wrong. Tonight we hit their command centers." Her second-in-command, Toby Arlen, adjusted his improvised armor. "We have intel from Lyra's team." The Eldrin headquarters still relies heavily on a few key nodes for communication and control. If we disable them, we can cut off patrols, isolate units, and create chaos. Mara nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive by thinking, by adapting. Let's show them why they ever feared us, or why they should have respected us instead of hunting us." They moved through the city under cover of night, using alleys, tunnels, and the shadows of destroyed buildings. Mara had divided the group into 3 strike teams. Each team had a specific target: the main communication tower, the drone control hub, and a supply depot that could provide weapons and medical kits for the resistance. Coordination was key. If one team failed, the others could still succeed. As they approached the first target, the communication tower, Mara's group paused. The tower loomed ahead, guarded by a combination of drones and Eldrin soldiers. The hum of energy shields filled the air and red lights scanned the streets. Humans could not match the Eldrin firepower head-on, but Mara had a plan. Using a series of mirrors and lenses scavenged from the city's research labs, her engineers redirected ambient light to blind the drones temporarily. Explosions from minor charges created diversions, and Mara led a small team up the side of the tower, moving with precision and silence. Each step was calculated, each action deliberate. Humans had learned quickly. Survival depended on cleverness as much as courage. Inside the tower, Mara and her team worked quickly. Using hacked devices, they disabled communication links and rerouted power systems. Screens that had once displayed control data for drones flickered and went dark. Patrols in nearby districts faltered, unsure of their commands. Meanwhile, Toby's team targeted the drone control hub. They rigged improvised EMP devices, using human engineering to disrupt the drone's AI circuits. Within minutes, a wave of drones fell from the sky, crashing into buildings or spinning helplessly. Humans in the streets cheered quietly as their oppressors faltered. At the supply depot, Lyra Soth and her team faced a more difficult challenge. Eldrin soldiers had barricaded the area, and security measures were more advanced than anywhere else. Lyra had spent years studying Eldrin biology and systems, and she used her knowledge to anticipate their actions. She guided her team, avoiding lethal encounters and disabling alarms with precise tools. By dawn, the 3 strike teams had regrouped. Humans carried weapons, supplies, and critical intelligence. For the first time, they were not hiding, they were reclaiming territory. Mara looked over her team, faces tired but resolute. The humans of Vaylor had taken the first steps toward liberation. But Mara knew the Eldrin would retaliate. The Council was not known for leniency, and their technology, intelligence, and discipline posed a real threat. The humans had to be ready not just to survive, but to continue the fight intelligently. The next days were filled with missions that grew bolder with each success. Humans rigged traps in the streets, designed decoys, and created systems of warning signals to alert each other of incoming patrols. Mara encouraged improvisation. knowing that human creativity was one of their greatest weapons. It was during one mission to sabotage an Eldrin energy generator that Mara fully realized the potential of humanity's ingenuity. The generator was massive, with multiple security layers. Rather than attempting a direct attack, the humans created a chain reaction using spare fuel lines and small explosives. The explosion was controlled but devastating, shutting down the generator and sending nearby patrols into confusion. From the shadows, Mara watched as humans adapted in real time to unexpected changes, modifying plans, using discarded tools, and working as a cohesive unit. The Eldrin had assumed humans were predictable, but the humans of Valor were proving otherwise. They were learning, adjusting, and overcoming obstacles that seemed insurmountable. News of these successes spread across the human networks in the city. Survivors in distant districts, once isolated and despairing, began to organize their own resistance cells. Mara coordinated with them using coded signals and runners, establishing a web of human activity that the Eldrin could not easily detect or dismantle. Despite their victories, Mara remained cautious. The Eldrin had advanced AI, powerful weapons, and superior numbers. One careless move could result in disaster. She enforced strict discipline, emphasizing coordination, communication, and preparation. Each victory was a lesson, each failure a warning. It was during a reconnaissance mission that Mara discovered something that would change the course of their struggle. Deep in one of the Eldrin command hubs, she observed a pattern in their operations. The Eldrin relied heavily on centralized control nodes to coordinate drones, patrols, and supply chains. If these nodes could be disrupted, the city's defenses could be fragmented, creating openings for larger human operations. Mara shared this information with Lyra and Toby. "This is our chance," she said. "We can fracture their control, create confusion, and take back the city one district at a time. But we must be precise. We cannot afford mistakes." Plans were made, strategies debated, and contingencies prepared. Mara divided the human forces into multiple strike teams, each with a clear objective but the flexibility to adapt. Humans were unpredictable, but now they were organized, coordinated, and ruthless when necessary. The first major coordinated attack targeted the Eldrin supply network. Teams moved simultaneously across the city, disabling energy nodes, destroying weapons caches, and rescuing prisoners. The operation was a success, and humans gained both resources and confidence. Even Eldrin patrols seemed slower to react, hesitant to enter areas now known to be controlled by human resistance. It was during this period of momentum that Mara realized another truth: humans thrived under pressure. Each mission, each confrontation, sharpened their skills, strengthened bonds, and hardened resolve. Fear had initially been their enemy, but now it was a teacher. Humans learned quickly, adapted faster, and turned even their weaknesses into strengths. The resistance began to communicate openly with trapped humans across the city. Messages of hope, instructions for survival, and warnings about Eldrin patrols spread rapidly. Mara understood that survival depended not just on fighting, but on inspiring. Every rescued human was a new member of the network, another pair of hands, another mind contributing to their growing force. One night, after a particularly difficult mission, Mara sat with a small group of survivors in the ruins of an old plaza. They had reclaimed it from Eldrin control and were fortifying positions. Soldiers shared rations, engineers repaired weapons, and children who had survived the initial slaughter wandered cautiously, curious and unafraid. Mara reflected on the transformation she had witnessed. These humans, once frightened and scattered, had become organized, resourceful, and unbreakable. The Eldrin had believed fear would cripple them, but humans had turned fear into power, desperation into innovation, and survival into strategy. She looked at her team and said, "The Eldrin thought this city was theirs. They thought they could destroy us with technology and precision. But humans have something they will never understand: resilience, intelligence, creativity. And when we fight as humans, not as soldiers, not as pawns, but as the species that refuses to be controlled, hunted, or destroyed." Over the next few days, Mara's plans grew bolder. Strike teams began to reclaim districts, turning the city into a patchwork of human resistance zones. Drones fell from the sky, patrols were ambushed, and supply lines were disrupted. The Eldrin began to realize that humans were not just surviving, they were winning small victories. It was during a massive operation to reclaim the central plaza that Mara witnessed the full power of human ingenuity. Teams used distractions, improvised weapons, and coordinated attacks to force Eldrin patrols to retreat. Humans had learned to fight on multiple fronts, using deception, clever tactics, and their knowledge of the city to gain the upper hand. By the end of the operation, humans held key districts, controlled supply routes, and had rescued dozens more survivors. Myra looked at the city from the roof of a partially destroyed tower. Smoke still rose from some areas, but the night was quieter. Humans had reclaimed a foothold. Myra allowed herself a moment of pride. The resistance had grown stronger, smarter, and more determined. The Eldrin had assumed humans would crumble under fear, but instead they had forged a new strength from it. The humans of Valor had become more than survivors. They had become a force to be reckoned with. But Mara knew this was only the beginning. The Eldrin would adapt, retaliate, and escalate their attacks. Humans would need to continue learning, evolving, and fighting. Every victory came at a cost, every operation carried risk. Yet she also knew one truth that had never failed. Humans were unpredictable, intelligent, and resilient. The Eldrin had underestimated them, and that mistake would shape the course of the conflict. As dawn broke over the partially reclaimed city, Myra tightened her grip on her rifle. The fires of Valor still burned, but so did the hearts of humans. The resistance had taken root. Humans had begun to show why they had been called the chosen species, not for favor, but for their unyielding will to survive and fight back. Myra looked to the horizon and whispered, "We have started the hunt. And when it is over, they will know that humans are not prey." The city of Valor had become a battlefield unlike any the galaxy had seen. Once a shining jewel of Eldrin civilization, it was now a patchwork of ruined towers, burning streets, and human resistance zones. The humans had learned, adapted, and survived, but the ultimate challenge still awaited. The Eldrin Council would not surrender, and Mara knew they would strike back with overwhelming force. Captain Mara Kellen stood on a makeshift observation tower in the reclaimed Central District. Her team had grown to hundreds of humans, soldiers, engineers, scientists, and survivors of the initial slaughter. Their faces were streaked with dirt, sweat, and soot, but their eyes burned with determination. Mara had watched fear transform into courage, doubt into intelligence, and desperation into innovation. Humanity had become more than a survivor species, it had become a force. "Today we finish what we started," Mara said, her voice steady and commanding. "The Eldrin thought they could hunt us, destroy us, and claim victory. They were wrong. They believed in their technology, their precision, and their power. But we have something they will never understand: human ingenuity, resilience, and the will to survive at any cost. Today we take back our city. Today we strike back." Her second-in-command, Toby Arlen, nodded. "We've identified their command nexus. If we take it down, the remaining patrols will lose coordination. It will give us a real chance to control the entire city." Mara glanced at Dr. Lyra Soth, who had been instrumental in developing strategies to counter the Eldrin AI and drones. Lyra's calm presence inspired confidence. "We'll need precision," Mara said. "No mistakes. One misstep and hundreds of humans die. But if we succeed, the Eldrin will know why humans are called the chosen species, not for favor, but for courage, intelligence, and heart." The humans moved out in 3 coordinated teams, each responsible for a critical part of the operation. Mara led the main strike, targeting the Eldrin command nexus. Shadows stretched across the ruins as they advanced, the city eerily silent except for the distant hum of drones. Humans had learned to move quietly, to anticipate danger, and to use the environment to their advantage. Every corner, every building, every ruined street was a potential tool. They encountered Eldrin patrols, but humans were ready. Traps, decoys, and ambushes slowed the alien forces. EMP devices disabled drones, improvised barricades funneled patrols into kill zones, and humans used stealth, strategy, and courage to overcome superior technology. Mara watched her team in action, pride swelling in her chest. Humanity had grown stronger, smarter, and more formidable with every day that had passed. As they approached the command nexus, the true scale of Eldrin power became apparent. The building was massive, its walls lined with glowing conduits and hovering surveillance drones. Mara signaled her team to pause. Every decision from this point on would determine the fate of Valor. Using information gathered from previous missions, Lyra guided the team through a series of ventilation shafts and maintenance tunnels, bypassing the most heavily guarded areas. Mara led the charge inside, moving with precision, every step calculated. Inside the command nexus, humans faced the Eldrin elite. Soldiers with advanced weapons, drones with rapid targeting systems, and automated defenses waited for them. But the humans were not afraid. They had trained, adapted, and survived worse odds. Mara's team struck with coordination and speed. EMP grenades disabled drones, and humans used improvised weapons and traps to neutralize soldiers. The Eldrin had underestimated human unpredictability, and it was costing them dearly. Mara and her team reached the central control chamber. Lyra immediately began working on the AI core, using a combination of human engineering and hacked Eldrin software to disrupt the system. The lights flickered, alarms blared, and the network controlling drones and patrols began to collapse. Outside, humans seized the opportunity. With Eldrin defenses paralyzed, strike teams moved into the streets, reclaiming territory, rescuing trapped civilians, and turning the battle decisively in humanity's favor. The Eldrin, once confident and dominant, now struggled to respond. Their precise coordination was gone, replaced by confusion and fear. As the humans pressed forward, Mara felt a surge of determination. This was not just a battle for survival. It was a battle for honor, for dignity, for proof that humans could not be controlled, hunted, or underestimated. Every step, every maneuver, every clever tactic reinforced what she had always believed. Humans were more than clever, they were unstoppable when united. Hours passed like minutes. The Eldrin attempted counterattacks, but humans had anticipated their strategies. Drones fell from the sky, patrols were ambushed, and key installations were reclaimed. Civilians joined the fight where possible, guided by Mara's signals and the coordination network. Humanity's adaptability was on full display, turning even ordinary citizens into strategic assets. By nightfall, the central district was secure. Mara stood on the roof of the command nexus, looking over the city she and her team had fought to reclaim. Fires still burned in distant districts, but humans controlled the streets, supply lines, and critical infrastructure. Toby approached, carrying a small device that had once controlled the Eldrin drones. "We've turned their technology against them," he said. "Drones are now under our control. The remaining Eldrin units are isolated. They have no way to coordinate." Mara nodded, a grim smile on her face. "Then it's time to finish this. Humanity does not stop until survival is absolute. Tonight, the Eldrin will understand the cost of underestimating us." They moved through the city, systematically dismantling remaining Eldrin forces. Resistance fighters guided them through safe routes, while improvised signals and alarms alerted humans to incoming patrols. Every encounter was a demonstration of human ingenuity. Improvised weapons, clever traps, and rapid adaptation allowed humans to neutralize enemies far stronger and better equipped. Finally, Mara and her strike team reached the last major Eldrin outpost. The building was heavily fortified, but humans had learned from every previous mission. Using deception, distraction, and precise coordination, they infiltrated the facility. Mara led the charge, neutralizing threats with a combination of strategy and bravery. Inside, they discovered Eldrin officers attempting to regroup and issue orders. Mara confronted them, her rifle steady. "This ends tonight," she said. "Humans are not prey. You hunted us, you tried to destroy us, and you underestimated us. That was your mistake." The Eldrin officers hesitated. Their technology could not save them from human unpredictability, ingenuity, and courage. Mara's team forced their surrender, effectively ending organized Eldrin resistance in the city. Outside, humans cheered. The city of Valor, once a place of betrayal and slaughter, was now a symbol of human resilience, intelligence, and strength. Survivors embraced, knowing they had achieved something extraordinary. They had fought against impossible odds and emerged victorious. Mara looked over the city, the ruins, and the survivors. Humanity had survived, adapted, and overcome. They had turned fear into strategy, desperation into creativity, and betrayal into unity. The Eldrin had thought themselves superior, but humans had proven that true strength came from courage, intelligence, and the will to survive. As the first light of dawn bathed the city in a soft glow, Mara addressed the gathered humans. "We have survived the slaughter. We have reclaimed our home, but remember this, humanity thrives not because we are chosen, but because we never surrender. We adapt, we fight, we endure, and we will never be hunted without response again." Her words were met with cheers, tears, and hope. Humans had turned the tide, not through superior technology, but through ingenuity, courage, and unity. They had faced annihilation and emerged stronger, proving that humanity was truly exceptional. In the weeks that followed, humans rebuilt. They fortified the city, trained new fighters, and prepared for any potential return of the Eldrin. But Mara knew that the greatest victory was not in weapons or fortifications. It was in the spirit of the people. Humans had survived what no one expected. They had overcome betrayal, slaughter, and overwhelming odds, and they had done it together. Mara walked through the streets, observing humans working side by side, engineers repairing buildings, children playing cautiously in safe areas, and fighters training for future threats. She felt pride and awe. Humanity had faced death and emerged unbroken. The city of Valor was no longer a place of fear. It was a testament to the human spirit. From the rooftops, Mara watched the horizon. Fires had burned out, smoke had cleared, and the stars shone bright above. Humanity had survived, adapted, and claimed victory not because of technology, not because of luck, but because of the qualities that made them human: courage, intelligence, adaptability, and relentless determination. And Mara knew this truth. The Eldrin had underestimated them once. They would never do so again. Humans were not prey. Humans were not subjects. Humans were the species that refused to bow, refused to be hunted, and refused to die quietly. The city of Valor had been the site of slaughter, but it had become a symbol of resilience. Humans had been tested, and they had passed with strength, unity, and brilliance. Captain Mara Kellen looked at the horizon and smiled, knowing that humanity's story was far from over, but certain that whatever came next, humans would face it as they always had. Together, clever, and unbroken. The Eldrin Council's betrayal had nearly destroyed them, but it had also revealed the true strength of humanity. And as the twin suns rose over the city, their light reflected not only off the ruins, but in the eyes of every human who had survived. They were alive. They were united. They were unstoppable. Myra lifted her rifle toward the sky, a silent promise to every human and every star around them. Humanity had survived the slaughter, and they would never allow themselves to be hunted again. They were the chosen species, not because the Eldrin had said so, but because they had proven it.